Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Sanjana Prabhakar. She's the index research specialist with Nasdaq Investment Intelligence to discuss the performance of the Nasdaq suite of indexes for the month of November and what it could potentially suggest heading to the end of the year. Sanjana, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me back here today.
You got it. Let's get a brief recap of market activity in November.
Sure. So quickly, November proved to be another positive month for the broader markets, with the Nasdaq 100 rising 5.5%, marking the best month for the tech-heavy index since July. So that's pretty noteworthy. And on a year-to-date basis, the Nasdaq 100 does remain in the red with a loss of 26.3%, putting the index on track for its worst year since 2008, which we have highlighted before. And this is despite the bullish action that we have seen over the last 2 months. And the top performing index was Nasdaq OMX Wind, which was up 21.7%, while the worst performing was the Nasdaq Ethereum index, down 18.1%.
All right, let's take a deeper dive here. Let's go through the featured and global indexes to track their performance.
Sure. So as you can see in the slide here, we have summarized the performance of the featured indexes and the global indexes. The PHLX Gold and Silver Sector Index was actually the best performing index of the Nasdaq featured index lineup, rising 16.9%. Up significantly from its gain of 2.4% in October. And as you can see outside the PHLX Gold Silver Sector Index, all indexes of the featured index lineup posted strong single-digit gains, with strength from the Nasdaq Next Generation 100, which gained 7.7%. And the relative underperformer that you can see here was the Nasdaq Innovators Completion Cap Index, up 3%. And just some quick color on the PHLX Gold Silver Sector Index. It was up recently as there's been some short-term weakness in the US dollar, which has sort of decreased opportunity costs for investors. And we have also seen a short-term drop in yields of 10-year treasuries, which has resulted in sort of more interest for gold and silver for the gold and silver sector. And if you look, you can look to the right, the Nasdaq global indexes, you see that the performance across the suite was overwhelmingly positive, with all 9 indexes finishing the month in gains. The best performing index was the Nasdaq Asia Pac ex Japan, which is up 16.1%, followed very closely by emerging markets, up 15%. And other indexes which posted strong double-digit gains include Nasdaq Europe, up 11%, as well as Nasdaq Developed Markets ex-United States, up 10.5%. And what I wanted to point out here is sort of the performance dispersion between developed and emerging markets. And as you can see, it's narrowed from 11% the previous month to about 8.3% this month. And what's worth highlighting here is that there was a brutal sell-off in emerging markets in the first 3 quarters of the year. And November actually provided some indication that emerging markets can outperform. And this outperformance that we have seen is actually the biggest gains that we have seen since March 2016, which actually makes this outperformance particularly noteworthy. Also some additional color, the outperformance actually appears to be driven by the reopening of economies along with sort of sound fiscal and monetary stimulus, which has outweighed the headwinds from inflation and hike disruptions.
All right, let's move along to green economy, Nordic dividend, and income performance, which just like the previous slide, we could see that there was a lot of good performance here for the month. Why do you think some of that took place?
Yeah, so as you can see here, all indexes in the green economy suite are actually up and moved higher in November, gaining 10.8% on average. And so those average gains were actually higher than the previous month. You see stellar outperformance from the Nasdaq OMX Wind Index, up 21%, and the Nasdaq OMX Solar Index, up 13.7%. All other indexes in the suite finished the month with single-digit gains. And what's worth noting is that the 2 indexes, the wind index and the solar index, had a stellar month as solar and wind deployments have gained significant momentum. And with President Joe Biden calling for a carbon-free power sector by 2035, there's expected to be significant tailwinds for the industry going forward.
And let's move along to Nasdaq bullet shares, options, Nasdaq Dorsey Wright performance.
Sure. So in this slide here, you can see the performance of our fixed income suite. All indexes in the fixed income suite of Nasdaq bullish shares ended the month on a positive note, which is an improvement of the previous month where all but 2 indexes ended the month on a positive note. And if you can see, the best performer was the bullish shares corporate bond 2026 total return index, gaining 2.6%. And what's worth noting was that this was a challenging year for bonds, but November proved to be a relatively strong month with all indexes posting positive returns. So it does appear that investors are encouraged by recent signs that inflation is cooling, potential peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, and cleaner technicals, and are looking for higher yields. And if you look at the option suite, you can see that the top performer was the Credit Suisse Nasdaq Gold Flow Index. And you can see that all indexes finished the month with gains. Very quickly, with our Dorsey Wright lineup, the performance was sort of in line with the previous month. Last month, 7 momentum-driven indexes finished with double-digit gains, whereas this month, only 1 index finished the month with double-digit gains. And that's something that we wanted to flag.
All right. And then for our final set of indexes here, we take a look at Nasdaq thematic and tech indexes falling in line with the broader performance that we saw in the market.
Yeah, and if you look in the slide here, again, you can see very strong performance. 20 out of the 27 thematic tech indexes finished in positive territory. And the strongest performer was the PHLX Semiconductor Index, gaining 18.6%, followed by the Nasdaq US Smart Semiconductor Index, up 16.9%. So these indexes that track the semiconductor industry had a stellar month of outperformance, and they actually appear to have regained some of the ground they lost in the first half of the year. What's worth noting is that the revenue outlook for the industry appears to be strong heading into 2023, while headwinds from chip shortage are still expected to continue. And what's also worth noting here is that the cybersecurity related, cloud related, and digital payments related indexes actually registered declines, with the Nasdaq Emerging Cloud Index declining the most by 6.7%. And what we have been hearing is that there have been cloud spending cuts which have appeared on the horizon and have raised some concerns for the big technology giants. The cybersecurity indexes, while they had few months of relative strength, they did register declines in the month of November, and that's something that we wanted to point out.
Okay, and Sanjana, in the last minute here, as we put all this together, what does this suggest in terms of how investors and traders are positioned? Your thoughts going into the end of the year and to kick off 2023?
Yeah. I mean, what's worth noting was that there was a sense of palpable relief among market participants after a particularly bearish year. I mean, we've had 2 consecutive months of positive returns. There are early signs that inflation is cooling, along with indications that the Fed will scale back the rate hikes as early as December. And I think that this has calmed investor nerves in recent weeks. Going forward, there is much uncertainty about the trajectory of markets as multiple headwinds continue to weigh on markets, including Russia, Ukraine, including the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, tensions over Taiwan, and also the slowdown in China. I think that what's also worth noting is that today there's broad consensus about the likelihood of recession, but it's less clear how long or severe it will be. We believe that the fundamental underpinnings of the Nasdaq 100 remain strong as we head into the final month of 2023, final month of 2022, and that's something that we want to leave our viewers with.
All right. We appreciate the insight as always, Sanjana. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thanks, Jill.